Good afternoon and welcome to round two of the NRL Thursday Liquid Lunch. The show aims to offer up some focused insights into punting and tipping, and we've also got some hard to get stats for you as well. I think round one can best be described as the round of the underdogs. Manly 36, knocking over the Bunnies 24, Sydney Roosters besting the Broncos 10, and with the Raiders, Sharks and Storm all getting up, that was a pretty decent round. In the Titans versus Dragons game, we witnessed two old war horses in Desi Hasler and Shane Flanagan, each returning to the coach's box and debuting for their respective new clubs. Congratulations goes to the Eels and Cowboys for their outstanding result over the weekend also. Speaking of round one, going back through the last 10 seasons, 46% of the teams who won a round one game have lost their round two fixtures. The Roosters calling, and that means it's time to turn the spotlight on Andrew, the Phantom, and myself, and look at just how we did for round one in the Thursday report card. There were only two favourites that placed in the round, and both Andrew and the Phantom, I can tell you, they're still recovering after a dismal opening volley, with Andrew 3 from 8 and the Phantom just 2 from 8. I had 7 wagers in the round for 5 wins, picking up a 71% win rate. I was, fairly happy in general. My punts on the Dolphins were a bit heady, I suppose, but I still pitched a very decent return on investment of 82%. Now, we've got a lot to try and fit into under 20 minutes, so let's get stuck into it, shall we? Game one tonight sees the much anticipated clash between the Broncos and Rabbitohs at Suncorp Stadium. These heavyweights last met in round 21 last year. It was a chaotic end-to-end game with both sides willing to use the ball. However, there was a constant run of errors, penalties and set restarts that created a very, stop-start kind of match. A dominant second half saw the Broncos claim a comfortable victory over a largely absent South Sydney 36-20. Both Broncos and Rabbitohs lost in Las Vegas, so this is quite an important game for their early season momentum. Brisbane looked to be the best of the teams, having their chances to beat the Roosters, who were just too good defensively. The Broncos have lost 10 of their last 11 home games at Suncorp Stadium on a Thursday night. The Brisbane Broncos have scored over 12 points just 3 times in that 11-game run and conceded 50 points or more twice. South Sydney have won 4 in a row and 7 of their last 8 away games to Queensland sides. The Rabbitohs averaged 33.1 points scored in that 8-game run. The underdog has covered the line in each of South Sydney's last 11 matches. Brisbane are returning to their spiritual home, where they won 8 games last season, including 2 finals. The bookies have the Broncos at $1.38, with South way out to $3.07. The Rabbitohs showed glimpses of excellence against Manly, but I didn't see enough to back them this week. Game simulation win prediction has Broncos 73% and South a 27% chance of a win. The bet to review, Brisbane Broncos minus 7.5 at $1.90. Now, Friday's early game at 6 p.m. is the Sharkies v Bulldogs at PointsBet Stadium. It was the final game of round 16, 2023, when the Sharks again hosted the Bulldogs at PointsBet. Cronulla were at full strength with Nico Hines available after being dropped following that dismal game 1 of Origin. The Doggies were without Matt Burton that day, and it was a one-way traffic, really, with Cronulla Sutherland running in 8 tries on the day to down the Dogs 48-10. The Sharks did well to come from 12 down to beat New Zealand Warriors in Auckland last week. It was an inspired effort, and although the Warriors showed nothing in the second half, that was mostly because of the Sharks' pressure. It's going to be another long year for the Bulldogs, I think, who were poor in losing 26-8 to a fairly clinical Eels outfit. It doesn't matter which players you add to a roster, I think. A losing club can often remain just that, a losing club. Cronulla have won 5 in a row at Shark Park on Friday and 6 in a row anywhere on a Friday. The Canterbury Bankstown Bulldogs last one away on a Friday, I think it was back in 2019. That was a very long 8 games ago. Cronulla had an important win against the highly fancied Warriors, and could this be the start of the Sharks shaking their I can't beat the top 8 teams hoodoo? The Sharks head-to-head at $1.31 are of little value, and doggies at $3.47 are only for the strong world. My game prediction has Sharks at 80% and Bulldogs at just 20% possibility of a victory. I think the wager to review is Cronulla Sharks minus 8.5 at $1.90. Now, if you're like me and you're really into stats, then give the Gurgler a visit for all the stats that matter. They've got some very hard to find and interesting stats for you to look over. Next up is Panthers versus the Eels at Bluebet Stadium. Round 26 last year was a very rare night off for the Panthers, getting thumped 32-18 by the Parramatta Eels in front of 21,525 fans on a sold-out Thursday night at Bluebet. Penrith were celebrating Liam Martin's 100th first-grade game and Jesse McLean's debut. It was the Eels who opened the scoring, with Mike Acevo crossing inside 4 minutes after Tyrone Peachey knocked on. Pressure goes on the defending champions Penrith Panthers, who were kept scoreless in the opening round by Storm last week. Penrith have won 20 of their last 22 home games on a Friday night back to 2020. And their only 2 losses, coincidentally, came against the Parramatta side at full gallop. The Eels have won 4 of their last 6 games versus Penrith and 2 of the last 3 on a Friday. The blue and gold are the Panthers' boogie team, and I'm wondering if that's likely to continue. You know, it's a very rare sight to see Penrith lose 2 in a row, and the Panthers have covered the line in each of its last 8 matches at Bluebet following a loss. Now, after the World Club Challenge loss, Penrith made a very uncharacteristic 12 errors against Melbourne. I couldn't believe it. Para was the only team to beat Penrith twice last year, adding an extra edge to this spicy Western Sydney rivalry. Platforms have the Panthers at around $1.39, I think, with the Eels out at $3.03. The game simulation win prediction puts the Panthers as easy favourites at 73% and the Eels at 27%. The bet to review, Parramatta Eels plus 7.5 at $1.90. Saturday's early game is the Raiders up against the West Tigers at GIO Stadium. Now, these teams last met in round 2023 in Canberra. The Raiders were able to overcome 14 errors as a team as they struggled to put the Tigers away. The Raiders eventually walked away with 2 competition points, nudging out the Tigers just 22-18 and moving to 5th place on the ladder on equal points then with the 4th place Melbourne Storm. We'll get to trivia time in just a moment, but first let's dig into the stats for Game 4 a little further. The Raiders were one of the more impressive teams in the opening week, and it was good to see Ricky's men get some confidence. They should welcome the West Tigers, who are selected by many punters to finish at the bottom of the NRL ladder. Canberra has won each of its last 7 matches against the West Tigers. The Raiders also won 10 from 13 games in 2023 versus Sydney opposition teams. West Tigers lost all 6 away games last season to non-Sydney teams. So all that's true. That's for sure. And it's also true that it's a new era for the Tigers. It still remains to be seen if Benji can get the team to turn a corner. Certainly the fans and club management are hoping so. Canberra had a solid first up win in Newcastle. Ricky's boys struggled twice against the West Tigers last season, only winning by 1 point and 4 points. Tigers will be fresh after a 2-week break and some necessary clean-outs during the off-season. Raiders are hovering at $1.45, Tigers at $2.76 head-to-head. The simulation win prediction is a 70-30 split. Canberra Raiders at minus 7.5 at $1.90 is the punt to review. Now, next up, it's trivia time. Congratulations to last week's winner, Jay Anderson from Redcliffe in Queensland. Of course, the answer was the Dolphins. So I kind of thought someone from up that region would win. To win a copy of my book, A Guide to Better Tipping in the NRL, simply email your answer to the address below, shown here in the screen. And this week's question is, which position scored the first try and the last try most often in round 1? Okay, good luck. So the Cowboys are hosting the Newcastle Knights at Queensland Countrybank Stadium. It was way back in round 8 last season that saw the Cowboys come away with a thrilling win over the Knights, 18-16. The late Saturday night game had a lot riding on it for both sides, with the Cowboys attempting to break a 3-game losing streak and Newcastle anxiously waiting to see how returning captain Kalen Ponga would slot back into the side. Leading the competition after 1 week are the Cowboys, who turned on the Jets against the Dolphins last Sunday. The Cowboys should lead from the front against the Knights. I think the Knights really were the most disappointing team in round 1. Newcastle's speed out wide was seriously lacking, as was their defence. Losing to Canberra at home just isn't good enough. And now they have a harder task ahead. North Queensland have won 6 in a row at home on a Saturday versus New South Wales opposition, averaging 38.6 points a game. Newcastle have lost 19 games in a row when playing away to a Queensland side in Queensland. Their last win was way back in 2015. The home team has won each of the last matches between North Queensland and Newcastle in the last 10 games. The Knights made 15 errors and missed 23 tackles against Canberra last week. Surely they won't be that bad again. North Queensland dominated the Dolphins, which are good signs after a disappointing 2023. Can they back up that against Newcastle? I think they can. Cowboys sit firm at $1.42, Knights at $2.90. My win prediction is Cowboys 68% and the Knights coming in at 32%. I feel it could be a closer game than many believe, so my bet to review is under 47.5 at $1.90. Saturday night at 7:35 p.m. is the Storm versus the Warriors in Melbourne. They last met in round 8, 2023, when Melbourne hosted the final Anzac round clash with their traditional opponents, New Zealand Warriors, at Amy Park. The Storm opted to start Big Nelson from the bench that night. It was a packed Amy Park that saw an enthralling battle with the Warriors getting on top early. The Melbourne machine kicked into gear, taking the cake 30-22. I love the Storm Warriors rivalry, and it continues this Saturday at Amy Park. New Zealand was poor when losing to the Sharks, so the Kiwi-based team needs to turn that performance around. Melbourne have won 14 straight versus the Warriors, and the last 9 at home. New Zealand have won 5 of 7 matches versus Melbourne in Melbourne on a Saturday, including the only game played on a Saturday at Amy Park, although that was back in 2011. The Warriors will have to improve their ruck speed and get more connected out the back. Storm could also do with tightening up their ruck play and better capitalise on their speed in the middle. An excellent win against Penrith kept Storm's amazing round 1 in streak alive. After having a strong start, was New Zealand's loss last week just opening nerves? We'll see. Warriors haven't won in Melbourne since 2014. There's still some value with Storm at $1.41, and many would still like the Warriors at $2.93. My game simulation win prediction is Storm 61% and Warriors 39% respectively. A wager to review would be Storm minus 6.5 at $1.91. Let's take a look at the boys' tips and predictions for round 2. It seems there are some differing opinions this round. Consensus, however, with the Broncos, Sharks and Panthers game. I like that the Phantom is tipping the Tigers, Manly and the Dolphins. A bit of crystal ball stuff going on there, I think. The early game Sunday has the Sea Eagles hosting the Sydney Roosters at Four Pines Park. Last season in round 23 at the SCG was a bit of an unexceptional affair. A big talking point, of course, was Matt Lodge facing off against his old teammates, especially the heavyweight clash against Jarrah Waira-Hargraves. But there was little fireworks from either team on that day. Eventually, the point scoring got underway, with the Roosters taking home a 26-16 win. Now, the winners from the Las Vegas game met on Sunday, and there isn't much between them with bookmakers. The Roosters are the favourites, and although they have the more high-profile players, I'm backing Manly to not make it easy for them. I was impressed with Manly's resilience in beating the Rabbitohs, and confidence has always been a king for the Sea Eagles. Manly's record at home to the Roosters on a Sunday is a win 6, loss 2, including an 18-16 win last season. Roosters' record on a Sunday in 2023 was a win 2, loss 4. Manly's Sunday record overall in 2023 was win 5, loss 2. Sydney has covered the line in 7 of its last 8 matches. The Roosters will need to get their big men moving from the start, I think, and consolidate their defence around the edges. Manly Warringah are off to a strong start in 2024 after a couple of poor seasons. After their Vegas win, the Roosters showed that they just might be premiership heavyweight contenders again. Bookies see Manly at $2.02, with Roosters an unconvincing favourite at $1.82. The game simulation has a decent split, with Manly 45% and Roosters 55% probability of a win. The bet to review is Manly head-to-head at $2.02. We finish off the round with the Dolphins versus the Dragons at KO Stadium. Round 13 last season saw a strong performance by the Dolphins, claiming victory at their spiritual home in Redcliffe. Anthony Milford starred, while Jermaine Isako marked his 100th first-grade game in really very good style, with 8 points from 2 tries and 5 goals. The Dolphins maintained their perfect record at home, defeating the St George Illawarra Dragons 26-12 in front of 10,047 fans. It was a tough start for the Dolphins, who were definitely out at sea against the Cowboys. However, despite that loss and the Dragons coming off an impressive win over the Gold Coast, I can't quite believe the price the Dragons are being offered, who could do better than most expect in 2024. Dolphins 2 and 3 at KO Stadium. St George Illawarra have lost 7 in a row on a Sunday, and the Big Red V has lost 13 of its last 17 interstate matches. The Redcliffe lads lost 6 of their last 7 games last season, conceding 30 plus points in 3 of them. Like me, the wagering platforms can't really pick a clear winner for this battle, posting odds for the Dolphins at $1.98 and $1.96 for the Dragons fans. My game simulation has a very close coin toss prediction, really, of the Dragons at 47% and the Dolphins at 53%. This game's bet to review is Dragons minus 1.5 at $1.95. Now, we know as punters there's any number of things that influence a game's outcome, and for example, randomness. Now, I define randomness as when the ball is unsecured by a player. I researched that in the 2023 season. There was approximately 6.5% of a game time where randomness was in play. That's just, I guess, one more thing we punters have to do battle against every week. You'll notice that I offer a bet to review in each round. I don't promote or advocate you placing those bets. I only suggest that you review them as part of your strategy and assess them using your punting methodology. Here are the personal punts I'll be making this round. I fancy 5 wagers this week, 1 each of a 2 and 3 leg multi, a couple of head-to-heads, and a few dollars on Storm minus 6.5. These are the bets that I'll give to you in my punting data each week in Thursday's report card. So, thanks for having me at your place today. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as we've had putting it all together for you. Please leave your comments about how we can improve, and remember, always back yourself. So that's enough from this mug. Bye for now, and good luck with your tipping and punting.